Tell me, would you oh my god, what is that thing? Would you brave the weird and haunted shores at World's End? Would you plunge deep into the frozen north to take the fight to Chaos, to destroy them at their source? No, that would be foolish and destined to fail, and likely to result in your being Bloodraven for sport. But Teclis and the High Elves are gonna try anyway, cause YOLO. Live for 500 years, and you'd probably get bored too. Back on the land battles with Capture Point mod, and here at the edge of the known world, stuff gets a little bit freaky. I don't quite know how to describe this thing I'm about to show you, other than it's an affront to nature, and I'm not sure I want to try any further than that. All I can say is, it offends me deeply, and I want you all to suffer the same pain I did when I first laid eyes upon it. The High Elves are crossing a cracked and desolate plateau here, of lava mixed with snow, and clad in the finery of Krace, they will do battle with the armies of Chaos. White Lions, Sisters of Avelorn, Swordmasters of Hoeth, and the Fireborn Dragon Princes. When there's a horde of armored barbarians on the other side, it's important to bring out the heavy hitters, and this elite Azure army led by Teclis certainly fits the bill. Potions of Shiroi, Fiery Convocation, Chain Lightning, Net of Amantok, and Regrowth are his spells, giving him a nice mix of damage and utility. Net of Amantok, certainly a top tier spell, when paired with the magical bows of Avelorn, pin something down in place and light it up like a Christmas tree. Across the valley comes Kholek and the Khazag Tribe with the Summoners of Rage in the vanguard, a big-time threat to Fireborn and traditional cavalry units, supported by Hellscourge warriors of Slaanesh, great weapons, and the Lord of the Storm himself, the mighty Suneater, wielding Star Crusher. Chaos warriors in the vanguard already securing objective number 1. There is only one objective on this map, and it will take some doing to dislodge Kholek's Khazag homies from their new perch. Sisters of Avelorn and the Everqueen's Court Guard will play a big role in that attempt. If given enough time and space from the White Lions in the front, they can shoot just about anything on the Chaos roster to pieces, but the Northmen have quite a few units capable of penetrating deep into the Azure rear, and Chaos Knights of Slaanesh are chief among them. Go figure. The elite mounted Knights of the Dark Prince, the Manticore, Summoners of Rage, and Kholek himself can all dive into the back lines and keep those sisters from firing. So the Net and Fireborn will be the counters to the counter here. And as we've kind of said before, it's all just a big game of chess. Nurgle Marauders are first unto the breach. Lord of the Storm dropped on the Sisters of Avelorn in the rear, who mostly dodged the worst effects of that spell. White Lions waiting to receive the charge of the Hellscourges, but just before they make contact with each other, Net of Amantok laying it up for a big-time Convocation of Decay. Wait, no, that's a Vermintide map. The Fiery Convocation, that's it. Yeah, that might do some damage. We'll see in a second. Moonbows of Lilith sending scorching arrows into the Chaos Horde on approach. White Lions chopping wood with their fearsome axes, and Kholek Suneater peering down on the peons below him, doing his own rendition of Crocodile Dundee. That's not a knife. That's a knife. Only, you know, it's a hammer the size of a building. Hellscourges of Slaanesh are about to have a dirty, rotten, no good, very bad day, and it's all because of one marked by an Arion, the OG Chaos Killer, Teclis, dropping magical malpractice on their heads, and he will follow that up with a Chain Lightning for good measure, which was actually probably a bit ill-advised. Overkill anyway, but it'll end up bouncing in a rather unfortunate direction and take a chunk out of the Swordmasters of Hoeth, who probably shouldn't be committing either, and they will quickly realize their mistake and begin their retreat back to the safety of Azure lines. Chaos Knights of Slaanesh are circling. Fireborn did get a charge into their flank and deal a little bit damage to a couple models caught out, but they'll be okay. Sisters of Avelorn are definitely waiting for a good opportunity to fire into those high-value targets. Ideally, would be able to shoot into the unshielded or rear side of those Chaos Knights, but they're charging right up the center. They will have the advantage of their shields working for them here. Swordmasters will unfortunately have to take the brunt of their charge, and they're already down to half HP, but this is going to be about an even trade for both factions. Both are going to lose about a 1,300, 1,400 gold unit, but that might be a worthy distraction for the armies of Chaos, because Kholek, the Manticore, and the rest of the mobile elements on the Chaos side will use that opportunity to dive into the rear and begin tying down those sisters. And this is where the Illyrian Reaver archers will be extremely important, because they're one of the few mobile elements in this relatively elite High Elf army that can go in and tie down the mobile elements on the other side, charge in, deal with the Marauders, or deal with the Manticore, just give a little bit more space for the rest of this army to operate. Sure, they're not really going to be killing anything, but they don't need to as long as they're giving the sisters more time to escape and then get into a firing position where they can then unleash from point-blank range and perhaps take those Summoners of Rage off the field. Now, Melkoth's Mystifying Miasma has been tearing up those Dragon Princes. About to see a Lord of the Storm from Kholek Suneater as well. Teclis got a nice net of Ammontok down on the Summoners of Rage to ensure that they cannot close the distance. But it's about 1,000 or 1,100 damage per cast on Elite Cavalry, like those Fireborn, and that's not even counting the additional utility from the slow. That is not how Melkoths function in Warhammer 2, and if I'm being honest, those are the kind of damage numbers you'd expect to see from Lore of Death spells that don't have any slow or additional effect attached. It's a fine line, of course, but I'm probably not a huge fan of a cheap, spammable spell like Miasma, dealing 1,000 plus damage every single cast, especially when it's also slowing them down, and frankly, I'm not even sure it's intentional because, like I said, it dealt about half or less that damage in Game 2. It's a problem for the Fireborn, who have to commit to the Summoners now that the Net of Ammontok has worn off, and combined with the Storm Rage Vortex the Dragon Ogre just unleashed and help from the Manticore, well, it's all a bit too much for the Fireborn, and they will die valiantly and stylishly. Nice play from the Summoners to continue putting pressure on those Caledonian Elite. Kind of just ran them off the field here, and we may see them return, but if so, it'll be only with a handful of models remaining. But their sacrifice will buy time for those sisters to reposition and perhaps get some really good volleys into the fray. Over here, near the objective, White Lions are looking to take it back from the Hell Scourges of Slaanesh, who are fighting on their last legs after all that magic being sent their way. And Marauder Horsemen getting a juicy little charge into these sisters, not going to be able to deal a tremendous amount of damage to them, simply because they have such high base stats and their melee defense is quite good, but they should be able to tie them down and give Kholek more time to drop the hammer, to Star Crush some sisters and really bring the pain train. Summoners of Rage and Manticore are teaming up and they're causing all kinds of problems in the Azure rear. Sisters had to delta split. One ran northwards, one ran southwards towards the edges of the map, being tied down by the remnants of those Marauder Horsemen and a Chaos Sorcerer on the left side of your screen. White Lions have been surrounded by Chaos Warriors over on the eastern reaches of the battlefield, I guess. I'm kind of getting confused which directions are which at this point. And so is Teclis, who is running for his freaking life right now. He's got a scary Manticore and a much scarier Dragon Ogre Shaggoth hot on his heels. And actually the Marauder Horseman that just routed gave him a little bit more space. He's going to retreat back through his own battle lines. Sisters are not supposed to be running forward, but sometimes when you give an attack order, they do that because they're stupid. Ranged combat in Warhammer is fun, and a big-time Lord of the Storm from Kholek Suneater hitting the White Lions, and he just pushed through like they didn't even exist. So, as Kholek chases after Teclis, we're seeing what that Manticore and the Summoners of Rage are doing to those poor Swordmasters of Hoeth, the remnants of them, and the might of a mountain, as Kholek Suneater continues to cause all kinds of issues for the Azure. He has been a nightmare for the High Elves to deal with this game, and Teclis is just fleeing for his life. White Lions are making their last stand against a horde of Warriors of Chaos, all clad in black armor and equipped with great weapons, and they're gonna have to pray to their gods, the Kadai or Sithari, whichever part of the pantheon they wish for. It's getting really bad for them. They do not have a lot of numbers here. Fireborn are attempting to cap the objective back, but they're being tied down by Marauders, and Chaos Warriors with great weapons are charging in from behind. So the remnants of those cavalry are about to be destroyed. Net of Ammontok dropped on Kholek, and this is the last greatest hope for the Azure, but it might just be a sliver of one, because sniping out Kholek when he's got 7,000 HP and you only have a handful of Sisters of Avelorn remaining is going to prove very difficult. And honestly, the Khazag tribe handled that engagement super well. They immediately dealt with the biggest threat on the High Elf side, which were the Fireborn Dragon Princes. They slowed them down, they dealt direct damage to them, they chased them with the Summoners of Rage and put pressure on them with Kholek from the other side. And once the cavalry were dealt with, the additional mobile elements of Kholek, the Dragon Ogres, the Manticore, and the Marauder Horsemen, even though the Chaos Knights had already been cut down, it was enough to put tons of pressure on those sisters in the rear and keep them moving. And when they're moving, they are not firing. And when they are not firing, they can not snipe out Kholek or the Manticore itself. And they ran roughshod this game. They were extremely impactful for the Chaos Army, and they are going to put the final nail in the coffin for the Azure here. But before it ends, Teclis will make his last stand with his Potion of Shiroi. He can get some pretty useful ward saves, and of course, lots of heals sent his way as well. He can also drop the Fiery Convocation. That will be mostly dodged by the Chaos Army here now that nothing's there to pin them down in place. Sister's getting some point-blank volleys in on Kholek, but this Freak of Nature has been a thorn in their side all game long, and he has home field advantage here at the edge of the known world, the end of all things. And the High Elves might have bit off a bit more than they can chew, and they are going to be punished by the Warhammer. Get it? Warhammer. Really well played from the Warriors of Chaos in this one. And I like the build, honestly. The Chaos Knights were a bit suicidal in the center there, but it opened up so much space for the attack in other places that that sacrifice was very much worth it. Teclis, with his Potion of Shiroi activated, taking on a Manticore in melee. And you would likely win that fight if given enough time. But time is in short supply. The Rifts, the edge of the world, and it is going to be army losses for the High Elves momentarily. Pyrrhic victory for the Khazag, and felt more like a decisive one, in my opinion. The Illyrian Reaver Archers were utilized very well. We didn't focus on it too much that battle, but they ran really good interference to keep those Sisters online, and the Sisters were really the MVPs outside of Teclis for the High Elves. The problem was there were just so many fast movers. They were able to dive into the rear, and Melkos really opened up a ton of opportunity for Chaos in that fight because it whittled them down, the Fireborn down, enough so that the Summoners of Rage could take a pretty easy fight, even though they were low and being shot to pieces by the Net of Amantok and Sisters of Avelorn combo. They ran a train on those Fireborn, and once the cavalry were dead, it was kind of just an implosion where one element of the army dies and it opens up everything else to die as well. That cascade effect cannot be overlooked in circumstances like this one, and once the Fireborn were dead, the Sisters just had to flee, and they kept fleeing until their untimely demise under the crushing weight of Starcrusher and Kholek Suneater. So, well played to XMT von Karstein, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace out.